TV review time! So, Amazon's show Secret Level just finished up, and I have some thoughts. Secret Level is an anthology series by Tim Miller and the creative team behind Netflix's Love, Death and Robots. And Secret Level is very much the same concept but with a different coat of paint. It's an anthology series of short stories based around 13 popular video games, one and another episode of shameless Sony advertisement member berries. This review isn't going to be a play-by-play of every episode, just the show in general, but if you want to know what I thought of each episode individually, then stick around till the end and I'll give a quick ranking of each of them. But what did I think of Secret Level as a whole? I liked it, but I didn't love it. The highs were high, but the lows were low, man. And there was so much wasted potential in some of these episodes. The thing you need to remember with this is it's an anthology of short stories. We aren't getting full 30-minute episodes and very rarely get a conclusion to these stories, but that's kind of the point of an anthology of short stories, but I mean, it doesn't feel great when you watch a whole season of TV and feel that only maybe half of the episodes got a satisfying conclusion. Some of them are painfully short and others go on for way too long. I mean, some standouts being Concord and Crossfire. I mean, they could have comfortably been cut in half, and then you got ones like Sifu and Mega Man that they could have been given more time in my opinion, but more often than not, they find a way to tell a compelling and interesting enough story to keep you invested and have great respect for each game's world, lore, and they give you a short but enjoyable time. If we're rating the show on visuals alone, then hell, I could have told you before this even released it would be a 6 out of 5. Tim Miller and his team have already proven time and time again in Love, Death and Robots that they're some of the best in CGI animation. When the art needs to be stylised to match the game's aesthetic like in Sifu or Spelunky, they nail it. When it goes for a more realistic approach like in Crossfire or Exodus, there's genuinely moments where you're looking at these human CGI characters and you have to remind yourself, these are computers, not a real person. It's just unbelievable. And visual quality aside, not only does everything look how it should for fans of the games, but it's just got a lot of details, Easter eggs, and little nods that fans will pick up on and enjoy. Look, just an example, I really liked how in the Unreal Tournament episode, the weapon spawn-ins were on spinning pedestals mimicking the spinning weapon pickups from the game. Little things like that, they're real nice and clever touches. The actual properties they use, all in all, I think it's a good spread, mostly. There's a few obvious choices of IP to make a short story on, a few strange pulls that surprisingly end up working quite well, and a couple of ideas that they were just bad. And then there's this elephant in the room. But you just know they already had this project either finished or mostly finished when Sony pulled the plug on this thing, so they couldn't have exactly scrapped it or replaced it with another thing, so I don't blame them for releasing it. In the series, the games that I'd already played, well, it was no surprise I enjoyed most of them, but games I hadn't played, more often than not, I was actually quite interested in giving them a go after the episode, so, I mean, if that was the point of the show, I'd call it a success. Cast-wise, they've got some big names in this. You've got Laura Bailey, Tamura Morrison, Claudia Dumit, Keanu Reeves, Arnie. There's some heavy hitters in this thing, and all of them do a great job, especially as not all of them are known as voice actors. I mean, going into this, I knew Keanu was going to do a good job. I knew Tamura was going to do a good job. I mean, hell, I heard him and instantly recognised him, but I bought him as the narrator of this world. But I mean, people like Arnie? Don't get me wrong, I love the man, but if you told me a few months ago he would be a good voice actor for a video game anthology episode, I'd say you were crazy, man. But he does a really good job. He plays the main character in the New World episode, and not only did I feel he brought a good amount of heart to his performance where it was needed, but he was funny, man. And again, I know Arnie's a funny guy, but I'm actually shocked at how good and how funny of a voice actor he was in this. All of them, it's good stuff across the board. All in all, I'd say Amazon's Secret Level is a show by gamers and for gamers, and it was a decent season 1. It's not the best start because, like I said, the highs may have been high, but the lows, they were pretty low. But I did enjoy it, and I'd love to see a season 2, which it's already been greenlit as of recording this. I just hope they can learn from the mistakes of season 1 and give us an even stronger season 2. To rate this show, I was going to take my individual episode ratings and use that to rank it as a whole, and this is the result. Ugh. So with that final score, I'm going to just have to round it up as we don't do decimal ratings here on Screwloose, and give Secret Level Season 1 a 4 out of 5. Stick around to hear a brief spoiler-free rundown of what I thought of each episode. Dungeons & Dragons I thought was a strong opener. even if you've not played it, you've at least heard of D&D, so I can see why they'd want to start with this one. It told the story of a party of heroes rescuing a young boy that was inflicted with a curse, and taking him to a dragon to hopefully exorcise this curse from him. It was good action, a diverse party, and they clearly know the diversity of D&D well. I mean, where else are you going to see an orc druid, gnome wizard, dwarf monk, and a human paladin teaming up on an adventure together? I mean, I like this party and adventure a lot more than I did Dragon Age Veilguard, I can tell you that. A good time. I'd watch more of this party and their adventures. 4 out of 5. Sifu was one of the episodes I feel could have done with more time, but they also did what they could with the story. The idea of this martial arts student going up against entire gangs and crime lords, but with his magic amulet that allows him to come back from the dead every time, but older, and after a lifetime wasted on revenge and fighting, asking himself, was it worth it? I liked it. They nailed the aesthetic, got the point and the concept of the game across, but I feel like it needed more time to breathe. Before it started, it was over and he was an old man after just one mission. I mean, it kind of takes away from the opening exchange with him and another character. Don't go after them, they'll kill you. You get used to it. I mean, do you? Because looking at you, you can't have died that much yet. A good time, but needed longer in the oven. 3 out of 5. Probably my favourite episode of the entire series. We follow Arnie's character, King Aelstrom, a king in search of conquest, who finds himself stranded on the island of Eternium, and finding that on this island you can't die. And he keeps trying to defeat the king so he can be the ruler, but he just can't beat him no matter what he does. I loved this episode. It was funny, had a cool concept, and ended with a surprising touch of heart. I've not played New World, and I just assumed it's your generic MMO, but even if it is, I can't help but want to give it a go after watching this episode. Really great stuff, and one of the only episodes I actually went back to watch a second time. 5 out of 5. The show was really picking up pace here for me. Unreal Tournament, the game, was a multiplayer arena first-person shooter where myself and many other kids of the same generation spent way too many hours up past our bedtimes at friends' sleepovers killing each other into the early hours of the morning. I mean, I haven't even thought about this game in years, but man, was this a good game. It's a pretty hollow concept for a story, just an arena of people shooting and killing each other, but they do something quite clever here with a robot uprising, with slave robots that are starting to wake up, and so they have to set an example of what happens if you rebel and put them in an arena to be killed, but the robots just keep coming out on top. It was a great episode with some real top-notch action, some cool little Easter eggs, and while I wouldn't want to watch more of it, as I feel they really did all they could with this sort of thing, what they did, it was great. Action-packed with creative fight scenes, love and respect for the original game, and surprisingly good narrative. No complaints here. 5 out of 5.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
I thought this show was unstoppable by the end of this episode. The whole episode has almost no dialogue, but it doesn't need it. It's just Ultramarines being badass. Apparently this is actually a sequel to the Space Marine 2 game that came out recently, but I don't feel like you need to have played that game to follow this. The beats of the story are very in line with the 40k world, and I mean, all in all, this is just a badass time, plain and simple. If you like Space Marines, this is everything you could have ever wanted it to be. If Henry Cavill's show is half as good as this, then Bezos, you better get ready to add another 0 to that net worth of yours, because this is what happens when you respect the source material. Rings of Power. Once again, 0 complaints, and another episode I went back for a second time. 5 out of 5. This one probably is the most disconnected from its video game counterpart, but I mean, it's Pac-Man. What do you do with Pac-Man? Well, this apparently, an alien creature wakes up from a test tube to be met by a gold glowing orb telling him he's the chosen one and he must eat and escape the maze, going on an adventure and eating everything along the way. This was definitely a weird one, and while I didn't hate it, I didn't love it either. 3 out of 5. Yawn. This one was just generic, a bunch of dudes shooting each other for a few minutes with a message of both sides telling themselves we aren't the bad guys. I've never played or even heard of Crossfire before, but this gave me no inclination to ever try it. It gets points for its amazing visuals and some okay action scenes, but all in all, this was a series low point for me, man. 2 out of 5. Okay, we're back in the room. We've got my boy Keanu Reeves piloting an AC with Tamura Morrison narrating the whole thing. Awesome. There was some really cool mech on mech action here. Not too much in terms of story, just some badass mech fights. Gave me an itch to play Fires of Rubicon again, and has a really good dark twist at the end of it. I like this one a lot. 4 out of 5. Into the second half of the season now, and it's not the strongest of starts. Outer Worlds is another game that I haven't played, and while I know this isn't what the game is, it gave me no inclination to try it out anytime soon. We follow a young man trying to find a girl he likes in this lab that essentially makes snake oil. Various lotions and potions that are meant to do things like heal wounds, repel vicious animals, make you breathe underwater, that sort of stuff. But none of his works, and as the lab rabbit, he faces the consequences time and time again. I feel there was more than a few missed opportunities to have this episode go in several different directions by the end that would have been more interesting than what we got, but I mean, having not played the game, maybe this was more in line with the world. All in all, it was fine. 3 out of 5. So before the show launched, all early reviews were saying this episode was the highlight, and after seeing it, did they get a longer uncut version of this episode? Because man, this had potential but ended way too quick. It's basically just a Mega Man origin, which literally leads up to him donning the iconic blue suit, only to cut off before we even get any real action. The whole thing was like 6 or 7 minutes long, if that. And I know these are meant to be short stories, but I mean, come on. You couldn't have cut off just 3 minutes of Crossfire to give us an extra bit of Mega Man action? This really had potential to be a 5 out of 5, but it was just too short. There wasn't enough payoff. I got to dock it. 4 out of 5. So the reason I haven't played this game is because it isn't out yet. But I got to tell you, when it comes out, I'm definitely giving this one a go. Apparently it's by the OG Mass Effect team, and you can tell by the quality of it. It's your classic short sci-fi story, travelling at warp speed where time is moving slower for you than it is everyone else. And what are the repercussions of what that does to the world you leave behind? It's very Interstellar. It's a great concept, cool world, nice aesthetic. Another episode I had to revisit when I was done. 5 out of 5. Another case of the Mega Man Too Short syndrome, but this time without a story deep enough to warrant wanting it. Spelunky is a game I've not played, but a friend of mine, Tig, has been begging me to try it out for a while now, and well, after seeing this, you're going to have to do some more convincing on me now, T-Man. It's set up as a roguelike world where you've got a kid looking for treasure in an ever-changing cave that is constantly dying before they actually reach the treasure and respawning, trying to find the meaning in all of this death and repetition. It doesn't really go anywhere and didn't really have a payoff, and while it gets points for the aesthetic design being unique, I won't be thinking about this episode again anytime too soon. 2 out of 5. Oh man, the jokes could write themselves about this one, but no, being serious here, it was better than I thought it would be. It's a space heist trying to rescue the captain of a group of space pirates, leading to the origin of everyone's favourite new cancelled IP, Concord. It was fine. I'm not going to dunk on it for the sake of dunking on it. It was pretty predictable, the writing. I mean, the crew was more bearable than any of the characters in the actual game ever were, but it was way too long, man. This is easily the longest episode of the season, and well, like I said earlier, they were never going to cut it, as it was probably already made even before the game was cancelled. There is no world where this episode merited being this long. What, so many other episodes got shortchanged, but I didn't hate it. 3 out of 5. Finally, more great content. Again, a game I haven't played, and I'm sure it's actually nothing like this, but really good concept and world. It's very sci-fi Japanese aesthetically, with a concept of one godlike being that controls how a city moves and the world works, and anyone can challenge him to any game they want, and if they win, they get to become the new god, but if they lose, they go mad. But this god can see everything before it happens, so he can't be beaten. So how do you go against beating someone that can't lose? Really cool episode with a really nice twist, which I'm surprised so many people online seem to be confused about this twist, but anyway, great time. I haven't rewatched this one yet, but I'll definitely be going back for it in the future. 5 out of 5. Shameless, pointless, advertisement, member berries. Sony, if you want people to buy and play your games, well, I gotta tell you, this ain't it. This ain't the way. Following a young kid courier trying to deliver a sentient package while being hunted down by a bunch of PlayStation IPs, the story was pointless, it went nowhere. They didn't even have the common sense to use Astrobot as the sentient package. They completely waste characters like Kratos. I mean, come on, my guy can take on entire pantheons of gods, but a teenage girl on a bicycle gets away from him? The only redeeming factor in all of this were the Helldivers, who I couldn't help but laugh at every time they screamed about liberty and democracy while trying to just gun down a kid on a bike. That's your sympathy point. 2 out of 5. And that's it. That's what I thought of Amazon Prime's Secret Level Season 1. But what did you think? Leave a comment down below and let me know. What games do you want to see in Season 2? Personally, I'd love to see an episode on Sekiro, or Bloodborne, or maybe Deep Rock Galactic. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next SAC Reviews.